I'm sure you've heard the news. The South China Sea has become the stage for a showdown no one saw coming. The Philippine Navy just pulled off a move so bold it forced Xi's mighty fleet into an emergency retreat. This is the moment the world has been waiting for, a high-stakes confrontation where the underdog dares to challenge a superpower. 30 Chinese warships, once the unchallenged force in the South China Sea, suddenly found themselves boxed in. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and panic swept the decks. Philippine Navy frigates to port, Coast Guard cutters to starboard, and a swarm of patrol vessels ahead and behind, an inescapable wall. The Chinese fleet was surrounded, every escape route blocked. The pride of a superpower, now trapped by a nation they had underestimated. The silence from the Philippine ships was more chilling than any threat. On the Chinese flagship, disbelief reigned as radar screens filled with green dots, Philippine vessels forming a perfect circle. Radio channels erupted with panic. Swagger turned to fear. The Chinese commanders, expecting a routine patrol, now faced disaster. Their formidable fleet looked suddenly small. This was a masterclass in naval strategy, a breathtaking gamble that paid off. The trap, sprung with silent precision, was now complete. The world was about to witness a turning point. Engines idled as the world watched, waiting for the next move. The Philippines had gone all in, and the Chinese were caught flat-footed. The hunters had become the hunted. The moment was electric, a high-stakes poker game with warships. The Philippine Navy's resolve had rewritten the rules. The Chinese fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, was now a cautionary tale. The trap was set, and the world held its breath. Everything was about to change. This standoff was years in the making. China's slow, relentless push into the West Philippine Sea tightened like a boa constrictor. Philippine warnings and diplomatic protests were ignored. China's navy, the world's largest by hulls, grew bolder, bullying its way into disputed waters. The Philippine Navy, smaller and outgunned, was dismissed as no match. But the Philippines didn't back down. They strengthened alliances with the US, Japan, and Australia, and held joint exercises. Beijing saw this as interference and doubled down, convinced force would win. But they misread the Filipino spirit. When pushed into a corner, the Philippines fought back with unexpected ferocity. The world watched as the tension built, waiting for someone to stand up to the bully. That moment had finally arrived. The Philippine Navy's plan was pure brilliance. The encirclement maneuver. 3 layers of ships, each with a role, moving in perfect coordination. The key was stealth. Every Philippine vessel switched off its tracking system, vanishing from Chinese eyes. They became ghosts, slipping through the night, using their knowledge of local waters. The Chinese, complacent and overconfident, saw only what they expected. By dawn, the Philippine fleet had silently surrounded the Chinese near the disputed reefs. The trap was set, the blockade flawless. The Philippine ships waited, engines humming, ready for the signal. China's arrogance had been used against them. The underdog had achieved total surprise. It was a desperate plan, executed with surgical precision. The silent encirclement was complete. The world would soon see the results. The Philippine Navy had turned the tables. All that remained was to reveal the trap. The revelation was chaos. Chinese warships' radar screens lit up with hostile contacts. Dozens of Philippine ships closing in. Disbelief turned to panic, as visual confirmation left no doubt. The Philippine flag was everywhere. Radio channels exploded. "We're surrounded! Where did they come from?" The Chinese fleet's aura of invincibility shattered in seconds. Trained to dominate, they were now trapped and powerless. The Philippine ships held their positions, silent and disciplined. No shots fired, no threats, just absolute control. Panic rippled through the Chinese ranks. Breaking out meant firing first and risking global war. Staying put meant humiliation. The The Chinese captains were paralyzed, their warships reduced to floating prisons. The psychological trap was as tight as the physical one. The Philippine Navy's calm was more intimidating than any weapon. The world watched, waiting for the next move. The Chinese fleet was at the mercy of their underestimated foe. The balance of power had shifted in an instant. The trap was working perfectly. The standoff had become a test of nerves. In Beijing, the news hit like a thunderbolt. President Xi Jinping watched drone footage of his trapped fleet, fury and disbelief etched on his face. His advisors split, hardliners demanded a breakout, risking war. Pragmatists urged restraint, fearing global backlash. "We cannot show weakness," the generals insisted, "but firing first will isolate us," warned the diplomats. The world was watching, and China's image as a responsible power was on the line. Xi hesitated, paralyzed by the impossible choice. Every second without orders deepened the chaos at sea. The trapped captains pleaded for direction, but Beijing was silent. Should they fight or stand down? The lack of leadership created a vacuum filled with fear and confusion. The dragon was cornered, unable to decide between fire and retreat. The crisis exposed the limits of power and pride. The world waited for China's next move. The fate of the region hung in the balance. News of the standoff exploded worldwide. Headlines blared, "Chinese warships trapped by Philippine Navy." Washington, Tokyo, and Canberra went on high alert. ASEAN leaders scrambled to prevent war in their backyard. Diplomats raced to understand the situation. Was it provocation or accident? The Indo-Pacific's balance of power teetered on the edge. Online, the story went viral. Memes, hashtags, and satellite images flooded social media. The world was captivated by this David versus Goliath moment. For the first time, someone had stood up to China and won the first round without firing a shot. The internet chose a side, and the Philippines became a symbol of resistance. Astonishment, concern, and a touch of schadenfreude swept the globe. The world watched, breathless, for China's response. The stakes had never been higher. In Beijing, the deadlock broke. President Xi, faced with war or humiliation, chose retreat. The order was terse. Break contact and withdraw immediately. Avoid confrontation. The mighty Chinese Navy turned tail, reversing engines and backing away. Philippine ships held their ground, silent and resolute. News cameras captured the retreat, an unprecedented public shaming. Some Chinese sailors waved white cloths, desperate not to provoke a fight. The world watched as the largest navy retreated from one of the smallest. Analysts called it China's most embarrassing naval moment in modern times. The withdrawal was more than tactical, it was a moral defeat. The Philippine Navy's discipline was unshakable. The Chinese fleet's aura of invincibility was shattered. The retreat was broadcast live, a global spectacle. The world had witnessed a giant humbled. As the last Chinese ship left, euphoria swept the Philippines. Navy and Coast Guard crews erupted in cheers. Horns blared in triumph. On the flagship, sailors embraced, pride and relief on their faces. They had defended their nation with strategy and resolve, not firepower. Online, Filipinos celebrated with memes, songs, and art. PH Navy. China Zero trended worldwide. National pride soared to new heights. International analysts praised the operation as a textbook case of asymmetrical warfare. The Philippine military's reputation was transformed overnight. The Philippines was no longer a victim, but a victor. The message to Beijing was clear. The West Philippine Sea is not for the taking. This was more than a naval victory. It was a restoration of dignity. The nation stood tall and the world took notice. The crisis is over, but the story isn't. China's humiliation leaves a power vacuum and burning questions. Will Beijing seek revenge or rethink its strategy? The Philippine Navy's success offers a blueprint for smaller nations. Will others follow their lead and challenge China's dominance? Inside China, political fallout could reshape leadership and policy. The Indo-Pacific's future is uncertain, a tinderbox waiting for a spark. The Philippines has redrawn the map of possibilities. Victory brings new dangers and uncertainties. The world watches, knowing the next move could change